Hey guys, so I have another CROM handguard for you here for the Ruger PC Carbine platform, and this is CROM's High-Rise Rail. And if you look at it compared to their low-rise rail, you can see that it stands a lot higher, and therefore it will protrude above the rail of the receiver. So in order to compensate for that, they actually have a little rail riser that goes on that receiver rail. So let's go ahead and install this rail onto a factory handguard. So to start, we're going to take our stock barrel assembly, and we're going to need to remove both the front and the rear sights on it. So for the rear sight, you can see it's got these two little hex screws here. We don't need to remove the one that adjusts the windage, only the one for the elevation. And to do that, we're going to be using a 1/16 hex, and we'll just loosen that up a little bit. Just enough so that we can slide this sight to expose this screw. Now we can take our T10 screwdriver and loosen both the rear and the front screws on both the rear and front sight. Now that the sights are removed, we can go ahead and take our 5/32 hex wrench and remove this bottom bolt holding the barrel to the handguard. And this bolt is captured, so the barrel assembly will release from the handguard, and this bolt won't fall out, but you will need to remove it, so just keep unscrewing it, unthreading it from the handguard, because we're going to use this later. So now that we've got the barrel stripped down of everything, we actually have to work on the receiver side first. So we're going to go ahead and take that rail extension, and we're going to put that on. And you'll notice at the front here, it's got a notch which slides into that first rail slot on the factory rail. And then just align it so things go together. And then we'll go ahead and take our hex wrench and tighten it down. Now that we've got the rail attached to the receiver, we can go ahead and take the barrel assembly, and we're going to put this spacer block on it. But in order to do that, we actually have to mate the barrel to the receiver. So we'll just go ahead and do that. And once that is together, you can see on this part in the very back, there's a little hole, and that hole is for this index pin here. Now CROM also has this little sliding mechanism up on the rail for that, but since this isn't mounted yet, we can go ahead and just slide it back and onto that index pin. And what we actually want to do here is we want to set the space between this mounting block and this upper rail, because that's going to dictate what the gap is between this upper rail and the foregrip rail. So if you have, your handy dandy little CROM sticker that came in the packaging, you can just use that as a shim and just back this spacer block up against it. And once that's there, then we can move to the top, and you can see how there are two of the original sight mounting holes visible. So we can go ahead and take our 6x48 T10 screws and fasten this spacer block to there. All right, so I've got the spacer block in, I've got these two screws, but I haven't tightened them down so I can, adjust where this thing slides. So once again, I'll take that little CROM sticker, put it there, push this block against it, and then I'll take my T10 screwdriver and just tighten these screws down lightly till it stays. And then we'll set them to final torque, which is 22 inch-pounds. Also, don't forget to set your headspace properly, so go ahead and turn this dial until it's snug up against the receiver. Now that that's all set, we can go ahead and separate the barrel from the receiver again. And since this is on the index pin, we'll actually have to use CROM's sliding index pin mechanism, so we'll have to pull that back, as well as the pin on the bottom to separate the barrel from the receiver. Okay, now we can take the bottom spacer block, and we're just going to slide that over the front of this barrel block, just like that. And then we're ready to slide the barrel assembly into the handguard. Okay, now that we have these two assemblies together, we can start fastening them. So we'll go ahead and take these screws, and with our 7/64 hex, we will start to screw them in to secure the handguard to the upper block first. And if you're wondering why the screw holes are a little bit offset between the mounting block and the handguard, it's because back here I've made the spacer block that goes on that index pin flush with the end of the rail, and if I had moved it too far forward, then this would actually take up all of that gap and could potentially even cause interference with the receiver while you're trying to assemble it. So you know, you may have to play around with that gap a little bit. You know, we just used the CROM sticker here, but CROM, they also recommend, you know, using something like 2 business cards or a credit card. So we'll go ahead and just fasten all of these screws on the top, and then these will all get final torqued to 40 inch-pounds. Now that we have the top screws fastened, we can go ahead and move to the bottom. And if you notice here, like sometimes the spacer block can get misaligned with the screw holes. So just use something like an Allen wrench or a pick, or even a toothpick to, like, you know, just maneuver it so it's aligned. Then we can go ahead and take this larger bottom cap and just, you know, place that over and make sure everything aligns. Right, so the lever to unfasten it goes through that hole down there, and then we can once again get our 7/64 hex and the screws to fasten it, and then final torque is again 40 inch-pounds. So the last bolt we will need to fasten for the bottom is the factory bolt that secured the barrel to the original handguard, and so we'll go ahead and take our 5/32 hex, tighten that down, and then this gets torqued to 65 inch-pounds. Now that everything is assembled, we can go ahead and assemble the complete firearm. So we'll take the action and the foregrip, put them together, and then we will have to pull back this upper index pin on the CROM, and there we go. We are together. So one thing I need to mention is sometimes it's a little bit difficult to force the indexing pin back up into the upper rail, and that's okay because it is a tight fit and really does a good job of indexing this to here, and also providing a secondary lock so you don't have your barrel accidentally coming apart from your receiver. So don't be afraid if you have to give this a little bit extra force, or, you know, feel like you have to maneuver or manipulate the handguard in order to get that final locking pin in together. So with that said, you know, here is the complete rifle, and you know, if you're a fan of Star Wars, this is your Boba Fett blaster if you're trying to build one.